The skies above Earth darkened at precisely 7:34 UTC on June 17, 2157. No natural phenomenon could explain the sudden shadow that fell across North America, a darkness that spread across the Terminator line as the planet rotated. In the control room of Orbital Defense Platform Alpha, Admiral Soren Kaida's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, the ceramic shattering against steel flooring in perfect synchronicity with the alarm klaxons. "Multiple hyperspace ruptures detected," announced Lieutenant Rivera, her voice eerily steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. "Sir, I'm counting. 73. No, 86 major signatures at lunar orbit. Hundreds of smaller vessels emerging." Kaida's artificial eye, a reminder of the Proxima incident that had claimed both her right eye and her family 12 years earlier, whirred softly as it magnified the main view screen. The hegemony vessels emerged fully from hyperspace, their crystalline structures refracting sunlight in ways that human physics still couldn't fully explain. The smaller craft moved with impossible precision, breaking formation to systematically target Earth's meager orbital defenses. "All stations, Combat Protocol Omega," she ordered, muscle memory taking over where emotion failed her. "Defensive screens to maximum. Ready kinetic batteries." Even as she gave the command, Kaida knew it was futile. Humanity had expanded to Mars and established outposts as far as Europa. But compared to what had just arrived, Earth's defenses were prehistoric. The reports flooded in from across cislunar space. Platform Beta destroyed. Platform Gamma's crew evacuating. The Mars defensive line going silent. 342 seconds. That's all it took for humanity's most advanced military installations to be methodically reduced to debris. On Earth, panic erupted as communications networks were flooded with footage of the alien armada now surrounding the planet. The crystalline vessels took up perfect geosynchronous positions, a net of technological superiority cast over humanity's cradle. In New York, the emergency session of the United Nations Security Council had devolved into chaos when a hologram appeared. The blue-tinged projection materialized in the center of the chamber. A towering figure with 6 limbs and iridescent scales that shifted color with each movement. Its elongated head featured 4 eyes arranged in a disconcerting asymmetrical pattern, and what might have been a mouth opened to reveal rows of translucent teeth. A small device at what passed for the creature's throat emitted a sound, and then words came in a cold, metallic approximation of human speech. "I am High Commander Vexnar of the Hegemony Expansion Fleet. Your species has been evaluated and found wanting." The creature's upper limbs performed a complex gesture that the translator didn't attempt to interpret. "Your technological advancement rate indicates potential, but your societal divisions and resource management failures make you unsuitable for inclusion in the greater galactic community." Dr. Elena Rice sat at the back of the chamber, part of a hastily assembled team of xenolinguistics experts. While others frantically took notes on tablets, she focused on the harmonics of the translation device, noticing subtle shifts when Vexnar mentioned certain technologies. "Earth will surrender all military assets, relinquish control of its colonies, and provide resources as tribute to the hegemony within 30 Earth days," continued the alien commander. "Compliance will result in limited autonomy. Resistance is inadvisable. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your communications cannot breach our countermeasures. Your understanding cannot grasp our intentions." Something in the translator's pitch changed during that last statement, almost imperceptible, but to Raya's trained ear, unmistakable, a dissonance that suggested, "Your extinction would be regrettable but acceptable. You have 30 days to comply." The hologram vanished, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. As the Secretary General attempted to restore order, Rice felt a heavy hand on her shoulder. She turned to find 2 men in unmarked suits, their expressions carefully neutral. "Dr. Rice," said the taller one, "you need to come with us immediately." "Why?" she asked, already gathering her notes. "Because you just noticed something nobody else did," he replied quietly. And right now, that makes you the most important person on the planet. The hyperlift plunged through solid mountain at a speed that made Dr. Rice's stomach lurch. For 37 minutes, she and her silent escorts had descended deeper into the Himalayan bedrock than she had thought possible. The smooth graphene walls of the lift reflected her tense expression. Dark circles under her eyes from 3 sleepless days since the ultimatum. "How much further?" she asked, receiving only silence in response. When the doors finally parted, Rice stepped into a cavernous facility that shouldn't exist. Stretching before her was a research complex the size of a small city, humming with activity. Scientists in specialized containment suits hurried between stations where equipment of clearly non-terrestrial design pulsed with alien energy signatures. "Welcome to Project Prometheus, Dr. Rice." The voice belonged to a man whose very posture radiated military authority, despite his civilian attire. His right arm was a marvel of cybernetic engineering, and his left eye gleamed with the unmistakable precision mechanics of advanced optical enhancement. "General Marcus Chen," he introduced himself, extending his human hand. "Former UNDF Special Operations, current Director of Humanity's Last Resort Insurance Policy." Rice shook his hand but couldn't tear her eyes from the activity around them. "This facility, how long has it existed?" 27 years, 4 months, 16 days, came the precise answer. "Ever since the Pacific incident." The term triggered immediate recognition. Every schoolchild knew about the supposed meteorite that had crashed into the Pacific Ocean in 2130. The official story mentioned unusual radiation patterns, but nothing more. "It wasn't a meteorite," Rice surmised. Chen's smile was grim. "A scout vessel. Hegemony design, though we didn't know that at the time. One survivor, who lived just long enough for us to learn we weren't alone in the universe." He led her through security checkpoints toward what appeared to be the heart of the facility. Scientists nodded respectfully as the general passed. "You've been reverse engineering their technology," Rice said, gesturing toward what was clearly an artificial gravity generator being disassembled by a team of physicists. "Trying to. Progress has been challenging." They entered a laboratory where a slight Japanese woman with wildly unkempt hair was manipulating holographic projections with hands that never stopped moving, a telltale sign of neural augmentation tremors. "Dr. Akiko Keto," Chen introduced, "the most brilliant mind humanity has to offer. She's been leading our research since the beginning." Kato dismissed the hologram with an irritated flick of her wrist. "You're the linguist," she stated, eyes evaluating Rice with unnerving intensity. "Tell me what you noticed in the hegemony transmission." "Exactly." Rice described the subtle harmonic shifts, the dissonance patterns in specific sections of Vexenar's ultimatum. "Show her," Chen instructed Kato. With reluctance, the scientist gestured toward a sealed chamber at the far end of the lab. Inside, suspended in a containment field, was a device unlike anything Rice had ever seen. Organic curves melded with crystalline technology, pulsing with a faint blue luminescence. "The neural disruptor prototype," Kato explained, "theoretically capable of interfering with the hegemony's unique bioelectric neural pathways. The same pathways that power their translation technology, their ships, even their weapon systems." Rice approached the chamber, fascination overriding caution. "You think their entire technology is neurally integrated?" "We know it is," Chen confirmed. "What we don't know is how to effectively disrupt it at scale. The prototype's range is limited to." A deafening alarm cut him off. Red emergency lights bathed the facility as the floor trembled beneath them. "Containment breach in Sector 7, shouted a security officer over the comms system. "Biohazard protocols engage." Chen's cybernetic eye whirred as he accessed security feeds. "Impossible," he muttered. "The primary power core is destabilizing." "Sabotage," Kato stated with cold certainty. "They found us." As emergency bulkheads began sealing throughout the facility, Rice caught sight of technicians rushing to secure data cores. Chen grabbed her arm with his mechanical hand. "Everything we've learned about them is in their autopsy files," he said urgently. "If you're right about the neural pathways, it could be our only advantage. We need to evacuate immediately." Behind them, the neural disruptor's glow intensified, its containment field fluctuating as the facility's power grid faltered. "Bring it," Cato instructed, already downloading critical files to portable drives. "Without it, Earth has no chance." Coming to you live from New Armstrong Colony, where tensions remain high as we enter day 24 of the Hegemony Ultimatum. 16-year-old Mai Zong adjusted her drone camera, her steady hands betraying none of the fear she felt. Beyond the transparent dome of her family's habitat, Earth hung like a blue marble in the void, deceptively peaceful despite the crisis unfolding across the solar system. Lunar administration continues to deny evacuation requests. She continued, her amateur broadcast reaching millions on Earth through underground networks. Official channels had long been censored by governments desperately trying to prevent panic. Many believed the hegemony would never waste resources attacking a research colony with no military value. "I'm not so sure." Mai froze mid-sentence. Through the habitat dome, she could see them, crystalline structures appearing in lunar orbit, their surfaces refracting starlight into prismatic patterns. 5, then 12, then over 20 hegemony vessels positioning themselves in a perfect geometric formation above the colony. "They're here," she whispered, her broadcast now capturing what official news networks couldn't. "Multiple hegemony vessels above New Armstrong. I don't understand why they would." The first beam struck the colony's main environmental control center. Unlike the explosive weapons humanity had expected, this was something else entirely. A concentrated pulse of energy that seemed to unravel the molecular bonds of everything it touched. The structure didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing but dust floating in the lunar gravity. Alarms blared throughout the colony. May's parents shouted for her in the background, but she kept broadcasting, her young voice now reaching billions as emergency override protocols pushed her signal through every communication channel on Earth. "They're targeting life support systems," she reported, her voice cracking. "Not military installations. They're making it so we can't survive here." On Earth, Captain Amara Washington watched the broadcast from the temporary headquarters of Project Prometheus, relocated to an underwater facility in the South Pacific after the Himalayan base evacuation. Her fists clenched as she recognized the girl, Mai Zong, daughter of Colonel Lin Zhong, who had sacrificed himself saving Washington's team during a Mars mission years earlier. "I'd promised him I'd look after her if anything happened," Washington said to no one in particular. General Chen and Dr. Rice stood transfixed beside her, watching as the hegemony methodically destroyed every system necessary for human survival on the lunar surface. Not attacking the humans directly, something far more insidious. "They're making a statement," Chen observed, his cybernetic eye recording everything, demonstrating how easily they can remove our capacity to exist. On screen, May's broadcast continued as the habitat's emergency systems engage. Her parents appeared, trying to pull her away, but the girl refused to stop documenting. "The air recyclers are failing," she reported, voice eerily calm as chaos erupted around her. "Primary dome integrity at 63% and falling. This isn't a military strike. This is." The transmission cut to static. When it returned seconds later, the camera was floating, tumbling slowly in the lunar gravity. Through its lens, viewers could see Mai and dozens of other colonists being sucked toward a breach in the dome, their bodies instantly freezing in the vacuum of space. The broadcast continued for another 47 seconds before the camera's battery died. The final image burned into the collective consciousness of humanity. Their children, suspended in death against the starlit void, with Earth watching helplessly in the background. In Project Prometheus headquarters, Captain Washington turned to General Chen. "I want on the field team," she said, her voice like steel. "Whatever you're planning, I'm in." Dr. Reyes, still staring at the blank screen where May's broadcast had been, spoke without turning. "The neural disruptor prototype. How soon can we test it? Chen's expression hardened. We have the components, but we need a live subject to calibrate the neural frequency. Washington pulled up a tactical display showing a small hegemony scout vessel that had separated from the main fleet. Then let's go hunting. General Chen stood motionless before the global broadcast array, 5 days after the lunar massacre. The operation had cost them dearly. 3 stealth vessels destroyed, 14 soldiers dead, and Captain Washington missing in action. Presumed lost when her team's extraction went catastrophically wrong. But they had succeeded. The captured hegemony scout ship had yielded everything they needed. Confirmation of Dr. Rice's theories about neural vulnerabilities, detailed specifications of hegemony shield harmonics, and most importantly, a live subject, albeit one who survived only long enough for Dr. Cato to calibrate the neural disruptor prototype. Now, 24 hours before the ultimatum expired, Earth prepared to answer. "We're ready, sir," said the communications officer, broadcasting on all frequencies, including the hegemony's encrypted channels. Chen nodded. Behind him stood the hastily assembled United Earth Command. Military leaders from every nation. Political differences set aside in the face of extinction. Dr. Rice waited nearby, data tablets displaying the neural disruptor schematics that had been distributed to manufacturing facilities worldwide over the past 4 days. "Begin transmission," Chen ordered. His face appeared on screens across Earth and throughout the solar system, in underground bunkers, in resistance hideouts, on the hegemony vessels themselves, their communication systems hacked using protocols obtained from the captured scout ship. "High Commander Vexnar," Chen began, his voice steady despite the exhaustion etched on his face. "I am General Marcus Chen of United Earth Command. Your ultimatum expires tomorrow. This is our response." The camera pulled back to reveal the assembled military leaders, each wearing their nation's uniform, but with a new insignia added: Earth's silhouette surrounded by a ring of stars. "You came to our world expecting submission from what you perceived as a primitive species. You demonstrated your power by massacring unarmed civilians on Luna. You demanded our surrender." The feed cut to footage from Maizong's final broadcast, showing colonists being pulled into the vacuum of space. Then to security footage from the Himalayan facility, revealing the saboteur, a human-looking figure whose skin dissolved to reveal hegemony features as it planted explosive charges on the power core. "You believed your technology made you invincible," Chen continued as the feed returned to him. "You were wrong." Behind him, screens displayed rotating schematics of the neural disruptor, alongside diagrams of hegemony neural structures with vulnerability points highlighted. "We've studied you for decades. We know how your neural interfaces work. We know how your shield harmonics function. We know that your entire civilization is built upon bioelectric pathways that can be disrupted." Dr. Reyes stepped forward. "Your translators shift frequency when you lie," she explained, her voice calm and clinical. "Your claim of technological superiority is accurate. Your implied invulnerability is not." The feed switched to footage from Captain Washington's mission, the moment when the prototype neural disruptor had been activated, causing the captured hegemony pilot to lose control of its ship systems instantly, neural connections severed. Chen's face reappeared, his cybernetic eye glowing with cold purpose. "You've sealed your own fate, Commander Vexnar. You could have passed us by. You could have left us in peace. Instead, you threatened our extinction." He leaned closer to the camera. "Humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not submit. And when threatened, humanity becomes exceedingly dangerous." The broadcast ended with a simple image. The Luna Memorial, showing the faces of every colonist lost in the massacre, with Maizong's frozen form at the center. Aboard the Hegemony command vessel, High Commander Vexnar watched the transmission with all 4 eyes widened in what might have been surprise. Then, in a gesture no human would recognize as laughter, he activated the fleet-wide communication system. "Commence planetary bombardment," he ordered. "No survivors. Neural disruptor calibration at 93%. Dr. Rice announced, her fingers dancing across holographic controls inside the stealth vessel's cramped laboratory module. Outside, an ionospheric storm raged, whether natural or engineered by Earth's remaining weather control satellites. Even the vessel's crew didn't know. The interference was the only thing preventing hegemony sensors from detecting them. 12 hours had passed since Vexnar ordered planetary bombardment. Major Zaid Okafor checked the tactical display showing devastation across Earth's surface. The Amazon basin, Eastern Europe, and most of Australia already suffering precision strikes against military installations and power grids. Civilian casualties remained surprisingly low. The hegemony seemed determined to preserve Earth's biosphere while eliminating resistance. Their farmers culling the weeds before planting, Okafor had observed grimly. A former Kenyan Special Forces commander with extensive xenobiological training, he had been selected to lead the most critical mission in human history. Dr. Cato approached, the neural disruptor prototype secured in a containment case. Her hands trembled worse than usual, not from augmentation effects, but from what they had learned from the captured pilot before its death. The last data upload from Washington's team confirms it, she said quietly. The hegemony fleet is operating at minimal capacity. Most compartments contain stasis chambers. Rise looked up sharply. You're certain? 87% of ship space dedicated to preservation pods, Cato confirmed. Not colonists, as we initially theorized. She activated a small hologram showing scans from Washington's mission, row upon row of transparent chambers, each containing preserved specimens that were clearly not hegemony. Different anatomies, different evolutionary paths, all meticulously catalogued and stored. A cosmic museum, Okafor murmured. They're collectors. The ship's communications officer interrupted. Launch window in 3 minutes, all decoys reporting ready. On screens throughout the vessel, they watched as Earth executed its desperate gambit. Not one diplomatic vessel as originally planned, but thousands of decoys, everything from modified satellites to hastily converted civilian craft, all simultaneously launching from hidden bases around the planet, overwhelming hegemony targeting systems. They can't intercept them all. Chen's voice came through their secure channel from Project Prometheus headquarters. Get to the command ship. Deploy the disruptor. The rest is up to ground forces. When their vessel detached from its hidden dock beneath the Pacific, it was just one of thousands of small craft swarming toward the hegemony fleet. The ion storm's interference prevented accurate targeting, forcing the aliens to choose between allowing some vessels through or expending massive energy on wide dispersal weapons that might damage their own ships. They chose precision and paid the price. Of the 37 vessels carrying actual neural disruptors, 34 would reach their targets. Dr. Rice braced herself as their craft shuddered, hegemony tractor beams locking onto them as planned. They had deliberately allowed themselves to be captured, their vessel appearing as a surrendering diplomatic mission. The automated docking sequence pulled them into a massive hangar bay aboard Vexnar's command ship. Remember, Okafor whispered to his team as they prepared to disembark, minimum force. We need their systems intact for the disruptor to work. When the airlock cycled open, they were met not by armed guards, but by a single hegemony figure, smaller than others they had seen, its scales a paler shade of iridescence. I am Sub-Commander Krulax, it said through a translator device. You will surrender your weapons. Ray stepped forward, her linguist's training detecting something in the alien's posture, uncertainty, perhaps even fear. We come to discuss terms, she said carefully. Lies, replied Krulax. Follow me to interrogation. As they were led deeper into the vessel, Rise caught glimpses through transparent partitions of what the scout ship scans had only hinted at, vast chambers filled with stasis pods, each containing preserved specimens of what must have been thousands of species. And in one chamber, behind reinforced barriers and with additional security measures, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Human specimens, perfectly preserved, labeled with dates going back centuries. They had been watching us all along. Through her neural implant, she sent a coded message to Okafor: accelerate timeline. They know more than we thought. The neural disruptor activated with a subsonic pulse the human ears couldn't detect, but that rippled through the hegemony command ship like an invisible tsunami. Dr. Rice watched through the observation port as Sub-Commander Krulax convulsed, four-fingered hands clutching at the neural interface nodes embedded in its skull. Throughout the massive vessel, every hegemony crew member experienced the same effect. Their neural connections to ship systems severing simultaneously. Deployment successful, Dr. Keto confirmed via their secure channel. 31 other vessels reporting disruption effects. 3 failed to deploy. Alarms blared as the ship's autonomous systems detected the neural disconnect. Emergency protocols engaged, bathing the corridors in pulsing crimson light. Major Okafor didn't waste a second. Move now. We have 18 minutes before their biological systems adapt. His team split into 3 groups, one to secure their escape route, one to disable the ship's weapon systems, and the primary team, including Rice and Kato, heading for the command center. They encountered minimal resistance. Most hegemony crew were incapacitated, their bodies dependent on neural links they suddenly couldn't access. Earth forces launching Achilles Protocol. Came General Chen's transmission from Project Prometheus. All vessels maintained disruptor field integrity. On tactical displays throughout the command ship, they could see Earth's response unfold, thousands of kinetic impact weapons and modified nuclear missiles launching simultaneously toward the temporarily vulnerable hegemony fleet. The weapons were primitive by alien standards, but the neural disruptors had created a critical weakness. Without neural control, the advanced adaptive shields that made hegemony vessels nearly invulnerable now operated on automated defaults, unable to reconfigure against unconventional attack patterns. As they fought their way toward the command center, moving through corridors lined with specimen chambers, Dr. Rice made a horrifying discovery. These aren't random collections, she realized, studying the preservation pod labeling system. These are extinction records. Each chamber contained the last preserved members of species that no longer existed, not just random specimens, comprehensive biological archives of civilizations that had been systematically eliminated from the galaxy. They're not conquerors, she whispered to Okafor as they paused at an intersection. They're curators. They preserve what they consider valuable before destroying the source. Kato accessed a nearby terminal, her augmented hand stabilizing long enough to interface with the alien technology. The data confirms it. Each collection is categorized as Preservation Initiative, followed by star system coordinates and extinction dates. A massive impact rocked the vessel, Earth's missiles finding their targets. The neural disruptor's effect wouldn't last much longer. When they finally breached the command center, they found it largely abandoned except for automated systems and one mortally wounded hegemony officer, the translator device at its throat identifying it as the ship's data custodian. Your species shows unexpected adaptability, it gurgled through failing translator circuits. The archivists will be pleased. Your genetic material will enhance the collection. Rice connected her neural interface directly to the ship's central data core, a desperate move that flooded her consciousness with hegemony information structures. She screamed as alien data patterns overwhelmed her human neural pathways, but her linguist's mind, specially trained to recognize and adapt to foreign communication systems, managed to establish a tenuous connection. What she discovered shattered every assumption they had made. They're refugees, she gasped as Okafor pulled her away from the connection. Their home system is dying. Has been for centuries. They've been harvesting worlds to establish new colonies and preserve what they consider worthy aspects of lesser species. More shocking was the revelation about Earth itself. They've been monitoring us for over 400 years, she continued, struggling to process the flood of alien knowledge. The crashed ship that started Project Prometheus wasn't an accident. They've been seeding Earth with technology, guiding our development in specific directions. Why? Demanded Okafor as another impact shook the ship. Before Rice could answer, A hidden door in the command center slid open. Through it emerged a figure unlike any hegemony they had encountered, taller, with extensive mechanical augmentations fused to its iridescent scales. "Because," said High Commander Vexnar, its translator producing perfectly unaccented English, "your species carries potential we have not seen in 50,000 years." High Commander Vexnar moved with shocking speed for his size, mechanical limb enhancements whirring as he crossed the command center. Unlike the other hegemony, the neural disruptor seemed to have minimal effect on him. 812 years, he stated, 4 eyes blinking in an unsettling asymmetrical pattern. "That is how long I have personally overseen the evaluation of your species." Okafor positioned himself between Vexnar and Dr. Rice, tactical rifle aimed at the commander's central mass. "Stand down," he ordered, knowing the command was futile. "Your weapons cannot harm me," Vexnar replied. "My neural pathways were replaced with quantum mechanical equivalents 3 centuries ago. I am beyond your disruption technology." Outside the viewport, Earth's counterattack continued. Several hegemony vessels were visibly damaged, their crystalline structures fracturing under sustained bombardment. The neural disruptor's effect was beginning to fade on the others, but the unexpected vulnerability had allowed humanity's primitive but numerous weapons to penetrate defenses calculated to repel much more advanced attacks. "You knew," Rice said, processing the information she'd gleaned from the ship's data core. "You knew exactly what we would develop." The neural disruptor was anticipated. Of course, Vexnar's translator produced something like amusement. "We have guided dozens of species to similar defensive adaptations. It is part of the evaluation protocol." The commander activated a holographic display showing Earth's historical timeline, with specific points highlighted. Technological leaps, unexplained discoveries, chance encounters that changed human development. The Pacific incident was deliberate, Rise realized aloud. "You wanted us to find that technology, as we wanted your lunar colonists to broadcast their deaths," Vexnar confirmed. Psychological response evaluation is critical to determining species preservation priority. Okafor's team had positioned themselves strategically around the command center, but Vexnar seemed unconcerned by their presence. "Your species shares a distant evolutionary connection to our own," the commander continued. "An intersection 63 million years ago, when our seed ships first visited your world. We left markers in your genetic code, potential that could be activated under proper conditions." He gestured toward the specimen chambers visible through the viewport. "When our home star began its decay, we embarked on the Great Preservation, collecting the essence of worthy species throughout this galactic sector before their inevitable extinction. You are our distant children, and like all children, you must submit to your elders' wisdom." Dr. Cato, who had been silently working at a terminal behind them, suddenly spoke. "The weapons targeting systems are coming back online." He's stalling. Vexinar's upper limbs performed a complex gesture, and the ship's alarms shifted tone. "Planet killer deployment initiated," announced an automated voice. "Target, Earth. Countdown protocol engage." Before anyone could react, Dr. Cato lunged forward, plunging what looked like a medical injector into her own neck. Her augmented hand stopped trembling as her features began to shift, human characteristics melting away to reveal the iridescent scales of a hegemony operative. "Deep cover Agent Krato reporting. High Commander," she said, her voice now using a hegemony translator. "I have fulfilled my mission of guiding their technological development as instructed." The shock of betrayal froze everyone momentarily, except Okafor, who fired a precision shot that Vexnar deflected with a mechanical arm. 8 centuries among them has changed my perspective. Cato/Krato continued, moving with unexpected grace toward the weapon control terminal. "They deserve evaluation criteria adjustment." Vexinar's expression shifted to what might have been rage. "You've been compromised by prolonged exposure. Step away from the controls." "I have observed their art, their music, their capacity for both cruelty and kindness," the agent replied. "Standard preservation protocols are insufficient for their potential." As Vexenar lunged toward his subordinate, Cato/Krato looked directly at Reyes. "The abort sequence is in your neural download. Pattern matching will reveal it." Then the agent activated something on the terminal and turned to face Vexenar. "I recommend preservation of the entire species, not merely genetic samples." The High Commander's mechanical enhancements whirred as he drove a weaponized limb through his subordinate's torso. Recommendation denied. As Cato collapsed, her features shifting between human and hegemony in death, Okafor charged forward. "Children grow up," he shouted, evading Vexenar's first strike with practiced precision. "And sometimes they surpass their parents." 3 months after what historians would later call the 30 Days War, Dr. Elena Reyes stood at the viewport of the EAS Washington, formerly the Hegemony Command Vessel, now the flagship of humanity's fledgling interstellar fleet. Earth hung in the distance, its night side glittering with lights that had dimmed but never fully extinguished during the conflict. The final battle aboard this very ship had become the stuff of legend. Major Okafor, against impossible odds, had managed to keep Vexenar occupied long enough for Reyes to decode the weapon abort sequence from the neural data Cato, or rather Krato, had helped her access. The deep cover agent's final act of defiance against centuries of hegemony protocol had given humanity its chance. What few knew was how close they had come to failure. Vexenar had nearly killed Okafor, breaking 6 of his ribs and severing his left arm before the Major managed to remove the commander's mechanical enhancements one by one. The decisive moment came when Okafor, bloodied and on the verge of defeat, had jammed a modified neural disruptor directly into the base of Vexenar's skull, the one vulnerable connection point where organic neural tissue still integrated with quantum replacements. "Still hard to believe we're standing here," said a voice behind her. Okafor approached, his newly integrated cybernetic arm, ironically built using hegemony technology, still moving with slight hesitation as he adapted to it. "Harder still to believe what we've learned," Reyes replied. The data cores from the hegemony fleet had transformed human understanding of the galaxy. 17 previously subjugated species had already responded to Earth's contact attempts, eager to forge alliances now that the hegemony's grip had been broken. Archaeological teams were investigating the genetic markers the aliens had left in human DNA eons ago, unlocking potential that had always existed within humanity, but had lain dormant. Most profound was the discovery that Earth had never been intended as merely another preservation target. The hegemony had been grooming humanity as potential successors, testing their adaptability, resourcefulness, and determination through manufactured crises over centuries. The lunar massacre, the ultimatum, even the invasion itself had been an elaborate, cruel test. A test humanity had passed in ways the hegemony never anticipated. General Chen entered the observation deck, his cybernetic eye now replaced with more advanced hegemony technology. "The diplomatic corps is assembled. They're ready for your address." Reyes nodded, straightening the formal uniform that marked her new role as Earth's first ambassador to the stars. Together, they walked to the ship's former command center, now reconfigured as a council chamber where representatives from Earth's nations waited alongside holographic projections of alien allies. "We gather here to formalize the creation of the Terran Concordat," Reyes began, her voice carrying to billions watching the broadcast across Earth and beyond. "Not as conquerors, not as collectors of the vanquished, but as guardians of a new principle, that all sentient species have the right to determine their own destiny." On the main display behind her appeared images from the conflict, the lunar colony before its destruction, Captain Washington's face from her service record, Dr. Cato in her human form, and the countless others who had sacrificed themselves. "They came to our world believing superior technology guaranteed victory," she continued, echoing the words General Chen had prepared for the original Declaration of Defiance. "They never understood that humanity's greatest weapon has always been our refusal to accept defeat, our ability to turn disadvantage into opportunity." She gestured toward the recovered stasis chambers that now held preserved knowledge rather than specimens. We will not follow their path. We will not preserve remnants while allowing civilizations to perish. We will share knowledge, foster growth, and defend those who cannot defend themselves. As the Concordat Charter was formally ratified, Rise looked toward Okafor and Chen. In just 30 days, humanity had gone from facing extinction to leading an interstellar alliance. In 3 months, they had begun to master technologies that would have taken centuries to develop independently. When they delivered their ultimatum, when they declared that we had sealed our fate, they were right. Rise concluded, her voice resolute. But it wasn't the fate they intended. They didn't realize that in pushing humanity to the edge of extinction, they were forging something stronger than they could imagine, a species that would never again allow itself, or others, to be subjugated. The EA Washington's engines hummed to life as it prepared to depart on its historic first mission, not to conquer or collect, but to liberate the remaining worlds under hegemony control.